Senate Republicans met with Vice President Pence today. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying he backs the president's legal challenges to the election results in key battleground states.
Heads of states from around the world have congratulated President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris, and Republican leadership has still neglected to do so. Are you all afraid of President Trump?
Well, what it says about America is that until the Electoral College votes, anyone who's running for office can exhaust concerns about counting in any court of appropriate jurisdiction. That's not unusual. It should not be alarming. I don't think anything that's occurred so far interrupts an ordinary process of moving through the various steps that I indicated.
NBC News correspondent Garrett Haake joining me now from Capitol Hill. Garrett, great to see you. We heard from McConnell there. What else are you hearing about the Republican strategy not to acknowledge the election results and how it benefits them potentially in the long run?
Yeah, Allison, a couple things going on here. I think what you heard from McConnell there might have been a little bit of that off-ramping that Carol was just talking about, trying to essentially buy time for the president to figure this out on his own and not have to throw him over the side. And I think that relates to the upcoming runoffs in Georgia. Remember, the presidential election is over. The elections that will determine the control of the Senate, that's a month and a half from now. That's those runoff elections in Georgia. And I think it's best to look at probably everything that Senate Republicans do in the intervening time as their efforts to make sure they hold on to those two seats and protect their Senate majority. They can't afford to alienate Trump voters. You know, the president may have lost, but he still controls that base of voters, and they can't afford to alienate them. So you see the majority leader there trying to play this very carefully.
Garrett, we mentioned Vice President Pence was on the Hill today. It was for a policy lunch with Senate Republicans. What else happened at that meeting? Do we know?
So I'm told he did give a brief update also on the state of the various lawsuits that the Trump campaign is engaged in all around the country to try to hold back these election results. And he also briefed Republicans on the state of the coronavirus response. I talked to a couple of Republican senators on their way out who told me that after hearing the briefing by the vice president, by the way, they concurred with the general feeling that the announcements about vaccines and some of the other coronavirus-related positive news didn't have any political dynamic, something that the president has been pushing on his tweets.
Garrett, Georgia is, of course, a state that could decide who controls the Senate. Here's Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer talking about Georgia's two Republican senators who called for the resignation of their Republican Secretary of State.
Two Republican members of this chamber have called on their own Secretary of State, a fellow Republican, to resign for no other apparent reason than the fact that President Trump did not win their state. They allege the Secretary of State did not deliver honest and transparent elections. That's really a stunning charge in the United States of America. That's the kind of thing you hear about in banana republics and dishonest elections.
Do Democrats see this, Garrett, as a potential advantage for their candidates? The two Republican senators may be wrapped up in the president's legal challenges while the Democratic candidates are out campaigning?
Well, look, the Democrats certainly have the clearer road here, right? They need to try to capture the same coalition that Joe Biden put together and try to drive up turnout among those voters in a special election that will be for control of the Senate. Republicans, at least until the president figures out what he's going to do, have a much tougher road to follow here. I mean, they've got to find a way to convince their voters to come out and vote in an election that the president's running around telling everyone was rigged and stolen from them. Why would you come out and vote in an election that's rigged and stolen from them? So I think you see these Republican senators going after their own here. They're targeting this Republican Secretary of State to try to come up with some boogeyman, some way to look like they're still fighting, again, without alienating those Trump voters who they're going to need. This special election, all special elections are different and unique little snowflakes, and this one's going to be as unique as any and very, very weird, especially the longer the president holds on.
Garrett, we also heard some news that Vice President Pence will campaign in Georgia. He was supposed to be going on vacation in Florida first. What do you know about all this?
I don't know anything about the vacation part of it. This is a sort of a hard thing to keep track of. But again, you see the vice president here saying he wants to be helpful, wants to go down and campaign in Georgia. I'm sure those Republican senators would love to see the president campaign there as well. Look, I think what you're ultimately going to see in Georgia is if and when the president either concedes or it becomes clear that he cannot win there, cannot win the election, or has not won the election, you'll see the Republican messaging around Georgia change, and you'll see Republicans say, this is the bulwark against united Democratic control in Washington, D.C. And I suspect that's the kind of message that Mike Pence would be particularly good at giving after this. And then, oh, by the way, Allison, you got to start thinking about this if and when the president finally concedes. Somebody's got to be the Republican nominee to run for president in 4 years. Mike Pence could probably get a couple of nice little chips in his pocket from going down there and helping out some Republican senators who need it right now.
Garrett, I'm going to go ahead and say that our viewers do not appreciate talk of 2024 when we haven't settled 2020 yet. But all right, you went there. Look, everybody is. They're all talking about it already. That's the way the cycle goes, right?
You bet.
Thanks, Garrett.
See ya.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.